In this video, we're going to go over the core review workflow in Everlaw. So this will cover topics like how to access binders and assignments, how to search through documents, and of course, how to review documents. Since this is meant more as an overview video, we're not going to go into too much depth for any of these areas or features, but there'll be other materials that you can use if you want to do a deeper dive, depending on your interests or your needs. Despite that, this should be more than sufficient to get you started. So why don't we start then with the very high-level basics. Everlaw is a cloud-based platform. That means you can access us on virtually any browser and device of your choosing. We also support touch interfacing, so if you have a touchscreen laptop or a tablet that you like to use, you can use Everlaw in the exact same way as you would use it on, say, a desktop or a laptop. So in order to gain access to Everlaw, you have to be added to a case. Once that is done, you should receive an email, and in that email, there'll be a link for you to create your account. Once your account is created, you can just navigate to Everlaw.com. And as you see here in the upper right, there's this login button. You can click it. It'll take you to the login page, and you just have to input your credentials to log in. When you log in, the first page that you'll see is the home page. You can think of the home page as a sort of hub page. It'll show you your own activity history within the database, as well as items that might have been shared with you by colleagues. So just to orient you to what you're seeing here really quickly, up here toward the left, you can see the name of the database that you're in. If you have access to multiple cases, you can click on this drop-down and a list of the cases that you can access will appear, and then you can select from that list to jump to other databases. Coming over here to the right, these are your nav bar options. So as a reviewer, you can jump to the home page, to the search interface, and to the message center using the navigation bar. As an admin, you have the additional option to check out some of the case analytics or the more administrative features and pages. All right, now coming back to the home page. The key thing to remember about the home page is that it's personalized to the user. So what that means is it's only ever going to show you things that are relevant to you. So your own activity history and items that you've created yourself. In addition to that, it'll also show you things that have been shared with you. So for example, assignments that might have been shared with you or binders that might have been shared with you. So what this means is that everyone's homepage will look a little bit different, even if you're on the same case. And one kind of implication of this is if there's an item that someone is referencing, say a binder, and it doesn't appear on your homepage, it's not because it doesn't actually exist. It's because you don't have the right permissions to see it, and they just have to share it with you before you can access it from your homepage. So even though the content of the homepage will differ, the structure is always going to be the same. So you'll have these columns for different types of objects or activities. You'll have a column for your assignments, a column for searches, a column for binders, a column for Story Builder, which is Everlaw's case building tools. And then coming over here to the right, you have a column of a history of uploads into the database and a column for any batch actions or exports. So the home page really allows you to jump into an existing workflow or start new work. For example, if I wanted to jump back into this assignment batch, I can just click on the card and it'll open up the documents that were assigned to me. Alternatively, if I wanted to start a new search, for example, I can click on this plus icon and select new search. Or in a similar fashion, I can create a new binder as well. Now, when you're first starting off in a case, your homepage will be pretty empty because you haven't done anything yet within the database. But as you can see, as review progresses, your homepage can become pretty busy and filled in. If this is a little too much for you, there are some options that you have to customize this homepage view further. So one option that's really quick and easy is just to favorite any card that's important to you. And you can do that by clicking on the star icon in the card that you want to favorite. And that'll add the card to this new favorites column in the far left here. And this is a really kind of quick and effective way to curate, again, the ones that are most interesting to you or that you want the quickest access to before having to look through any particular column. One other thing that you can do is to filter down the cards by keyword. So if you know a particular keyword that appears on the card, you can type that in and the cards will filter down to show you only those that match what you're trying to find. And then finally, you can also click in to any category of cards to view only the cards of a certain type. The order that the cards appear in is determined by when you last accessed a card. So for example, if I come in here and I access this FASTO Depot Docs binder, and then I return to the home page, you'll see that the FASTO Depot Docs binder is now the first one on my binders column. So when objects like binders and assignments are shared with you, they'll automatically appear on your homepage. And you'll also receive both a message through Everlaw and an email alerting you that an object has been shared with you. So you'll always be caught up to speed if people are assigning you batches of documents or if they're giving you access to particular collections of documents through the binder feature. All right. So from here, let's jump to talking about searching. There's two ways to access the search interface from the homepage view. The first way, as you saw a little bit earlier on, is just to click on this plus icon and select New Search. Or you can also use the nav bar, and that would be clicking on this magnifying glass icon. So both will take you to the same place. All right, so this is Everlaw's search interface. Let me orient you to what you're seeing really quickly. In the center here is what we call the search builder, and this is where you'll be creating the logic of your search. To the left are the different terms that you can use, and each term will look for documents based on a discrete attribute. So for example, the content search term will look for documents based on their content, Bates based on the Bates numbering, metadata based on metadata values, coded based on how documents were reviewed, so on and so forth. And then all the way down here at the bottom is the instant search preview. This little box will populate with some basic information about the documents that match your search at any given point. And it'll also show you up to 10 documents that are sampled from your full set of search results. And you can use these sample documents to gauge whether or not the search that you're building is one that will return documents that you want to see. So within each category, by default, we're going to start you off with these three terms. And these three terms are ones that we've determined are used the most by people who run searches for documents. But if you click on this Show More link, it'll open up the category and it'll show you all of the available terms that you can use to find documents with. If there are some that you always want to see without having to expand the category, you can just drag and drop them so that it's above the fold. So this will help you curate the terms that you always want to use. And these settings are on a per user basis, so each user can set up their search interface exactly as they like. And of course, you can do the same with the review category as well. All right, let's build a really quick search just to demonstrate how searching works, and then we'll take a step back and deconstruct what I did. So let's say I want to look for all the documents in the database that contain the phrase energy prices. That's going to pull back about 6,000 or so documents. From here, I want to further narrow it down. So let's say I'm only interested in documents of a certain type. Maybe I only want to see documents that are emails or documents that are spreadsheets. And that's going to bring us down to about 2,000 or so documents. From here, maybe I only want to see those that, let's say, haven't been viewed yet by anyone on the review team. And that's going to cut down by just a handful of documents. But this search really illustrates all of the core mechanisms of searching in Everlaw. So essentially, you're going to click in the different attributes you want to search across, and then you're going to use the logical operators to structure the logic of your search. And the way the operators work is that the operator itself is applied to all the terms that fall within its container. In this case, this OR operator is uniting this type email and type spreadsheet term, and this entire search is being ANDed together. The one additional operator you have access to is the NOT operator, and this is applied just by clicking on any one of the terms that you want to negate. Coming up here to the content search term, the single content search term is pretty powerful in that you can actually use and OR logical operators right within a single term. And that would be using and in all caps or in all caps. You can also use the double ampersand in place of the and. And finally, if you separate searches by a simple space, the system is just going to default that to an OR search. So in this case, this will look for documents that contain the phrase energy prices or California. And this is equivalent to putting the OR operator between these two distinct content searches. Besides the and the OR, you can also use the NOT, and that is not in all caps. And we use all caps because this helps distinguish the use of a logical operator compared to actually trying to look for the word not or the word and OR. So in this case, this search will look for documents that contain the phrase energy prices, but do not contain the word California. And then you can also use parentheses to further control the logic of your search. So I can put parentheses around this search, and let's say and it with commission. So this search will look for documents that contain either energy prices or California and the word commission. So besides keyword searches and phrase searches, we also have some more advanced content searches that you can run, like wildcard searches, proximity searches, and fuzzy searches. You can also use regular expression, but we're not going to cover that in this video. If you're curious, you can always click into this question mark icon and read some of the corresponding help articles. You can also watch our more advanced search video to learn how to do those more complicated content searches. All right, but once you're done building your search, you can click Begin Review. And this is when a search history card will be saved. So if I click Begin Review and I go back to the home page, you'll see that there's now a corresponding card to the search that I just ran. Otherwise, everything else that you do before that point won't be saved. The next area of the platform to talk about is the results table. The results table is just our standard way of displaying collections of documents. So whether you access a search or an assignment batch or a binder, it's all going to take you to the same view, which is just essentially a table of all of the documents that are in a collection. So for example, we can access this search here, and it'll take us to the results table view, which is, as you would expect, this endless scroll table with each row representing a separate document. Now, there are a lot of things that you can do in this view. We're only going to cover a few, and for the few that we do cover, we're also not going to go into too much depth. If you want to do a deeper dive or learn more, there are some other videos and other written resources that you can access. So the first thing of note in the results table view is that you can actually customize what columns are visible. And this is a per user setting, just like the search term setting that you saw earlier. So to customize the columns, we're going to click on this plus minus icon, and it'll bring up this dialog. And you can click to select or deselect the fields that you want to add. You can also search for fields if you know what you want to look for. So once you've made your selections, you can press OK. And now your selected fields will either be added to your table or removed. The benefit of adding different columns is that it allows you to see some high-level information without even needing to open up any particular document for review. Another benefit is that for any column that has this caret icon, you can actually sort by the column, and this will help you control the order that the documents appear in. Besides single column sorting, we also support subsorting. And this is to an unlimited depth. It's only limited by the number of sortable columns in your table. So you can perform some pretty complex sorting operations to get the documents exactly in the order that you want to see them in. All right, now coming up to the toolbar, the group icon lets you see documents in the context of their families or other types of document relationships. So for example, you can group by attachment family, you can group by email threads, or by exact duplicates. And what this does is it looks at each document, and if a document is part of a larger family, the documents that are in that family will also now show up on the table. So for example, I can group by, let's say, email threads. The table will rearrange itself. And you'll see that some documents are part of a grouping because there'll be this caret icon, whereas some are these standalone documents. And for any grouping of documents, you can click on the caret icon to expand the grouping, and you can see all the children, which are distinguished by the decimal row numbers. You'll also notice that some documents are listed in this purple italicized font. And what this is indicating is that these are documents that weren't in your original collection, but are now in the table because of the grouping. So in this context, what this is saying is that this email isn't or wasn't returned by the search that underlies this collection of documents, but because it's a family member of a document that was returned, because of the grouping, it's now part of the table. All right. The last feature I wanted to cover in the results table is the share icon. This lets you share the search. So again, any search that you run will be private to you. No one else will be able to see it unless you actually share it out. So to share a search, just click on the share icon. This dialog will appear, and you can choose who you want to share it with. It can be across entire groups of users. It can be to users that are part of specific organizations. and this is determined by the email domain. Or you can also choose individual users. You can type an optional message, and then the search is going to be attached. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, when you are the recipient of a message or a shared item in Everlaw, you'll receive both a Everlaw message and an email. In the event that the message has an attachment, you'll only be able to access the attachment if you log into Everlaw, but the email will display the body of the message. It's just for security purposes, we want you to log into Everlaw before you can, say, open a search or open a document. I also mentioned earlier that items like binders and assignments, once they're shared with someone, it'll automatically show up on the recipient's homepage. In the case of searches, it's a little bit different. If someone shares a search with you, you'll actually have to access the message through the message center and then click on the attached search card before it's actually added to your own homepage. And that's just because searches work a little bit differently than things like binders and assignment batches. So just two things to keep in mind. All right, when you're ready to open a document for review, just click on the row of the document you want to open. And the document will open in the separate review window. Since these two windows are separate, if you wanted to, you can keep both views side by side if you have two monitors. And the benefit of that is, as you're actually going through your document batch, you can keep track of your progress by looking at the table. It also makes selecting a new document very easy. You just click on a new row and the document will open in the table. For now, though, let's focus on the review window itself. First, let's talk about navigation really quickly. So in the center here, you have your document. In the upper left, you have your resizing tools and also reorientation tools if the document comes in the wrong orientation. Coming all the way here to the right, you have the different renditions or formats of the document. So the PDF format is our image view. You also have the text file, and you also have the native viewer. Right below that, you have the page selector tool. So you can see the total number of pages, in this case 36, and you can use the selector tool to jump to any page you want. You can also use the big blue arrows to the sides of the document to go from page to page. And the keyboard shortcut for page-to-page navigation is the left and right arrow keys on your keyboard. If you want to go to another document, you can use the orange arrows, which are right below the blue ones. These will take you to a new document in the set. The left orange arrow will go up the table, and the right orange arrow will go down the table. All the way down here at the very bottom, you have your coding panel. When it's collapsed, it's going to show you the current status of the document. So in this case, this document has been rated as cold. It's been applied 4 codes under accounting and 3 codes under joint ventures. If you wanted to, you can hover over any category and you can select or deselect codes accordingly. But the one caveat is that when the coding panel is collapsed, you're not guaranteed to have access to all of the codes that are on your coding sheet. So it's always safer to actually open up the panel to do your coding. The way to open the panel is to click on this little caret icon here. The keyboard shortcut for this is the space bar on your keyboard. That'll pop open the panel. From here, you can see all of your available codes and categories. And it's just as simple as clicking to select or deselect the codes that you want to use. The convention here is that any code or label that has a white background is currently applied to the document, and any code or label that has the gray background is not applied to the document. Your choices are saved whenever you move on to a new document or when you exit out of this view. So functionally, it's basically automatically saved. There's no additional step you need to take to save your review decisions. Occasionally, you might see coding categories that have this Venn diagram icon. And what this is signaling is that this is a category for which only one code within the category can be applied at any given time to a particular document. So for example, for the accounting category, I can apply multiple codes within the category. But for this confidentiality category, I can only apply one code. If I decide to mark this document as confidential, the system will automatically remove the not confidential code that was applied. Besides these codes and ratings, you can also add documents to binders from this view. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see the binder section and a list of all the binders that you have access to. To add a document to a binder, it's just like coding. You would just select the binder that you want the document to go into. This placeholder tag here lets you create a new binder and add a document to it right from this view. And then finally, all the way down here at the bottom, you can also add a note to the document. Some people might not like popping this drawer up and down, in part because it obscures the document. So you have some other options as well for coding. One option is you can actually open up the coding panel in a more vertical view. And the way to do that is to click on this text box here in the lower left. Just click on it. You can also open this using a keyboard shortcut. So if I press A on my keyboard, I can open up this vertical coding panel view. And then from here, of course, you can just select or deselect codes accordingly. If you're a person that likes using exclusively the keyboard, this is a really great option for you because once the panel is open, you can use the up and down arrow keys to navigate to any code and enter to select or deselect. If you start typing in here, the system will also let you either add a new note to the document based on the text that you've added to the box, or create a new binder that is named according to the inputted text. One other coding-related feature I wanted to cover are presets. Presets are basically hotkeys for either an individual code or for an entire combination of codes. And this can really help standardize and speed up review, especially if you find yourself applying a similar set of codes to particular documents. So if you want to create a new preset, you can click on this pencil icon here. Each user gets up to 9 presets that they can create. And this corresponds to numbers on your keyboard. So besides just clicking on an icon to apply a preset, you can also hit the corresponding number on your keyboard to apply the preset. And that's one of the time-saving features that the preset enables. So right now we're in edit mode. We can choose to either add a new preset to an empty slot, or we can also edit or override an existing preset. So let's just say I want to override preset 4 here. I can choose preset 4, and I'm going to deselect all the codes that were originally part of preset 4. And let's say for my new preset, I want to add these 2 fraud codes. I want to rate the document as hot. And I also want to add a note. related to securities fraud. So I can set up my preset in this way. If I click twice on a label, you'll notice that there's this red outline here. What this is signifying is that if I add this to my preset, I want to remove this code when the preset is applied, if the code is on the document that I'm reviewing. So the key thing to know about presets is that it's only going to add on to existing coding. It's never going to remove codes unless you explicitly remove them as part of the logic of the preset. There are some caveats to this. One caveat is that for the rating category, it's not going to add on to any existing rating. It's just going to change it to whatever rating you have as part of your preset. Since the rating category it functions exactly like a mutually exclusive category. And as you can imagine, for mutually exclusive categories, it also works just like rating. If you apply a code in a mutually exclusive category and another code from that category is already on the document, that previous code will be removed because of the logic of these mutually exclusive categories. But once you're done creating your preset, you can click Save. And now if I hover over preset 4, you'll see that this is the pattern of coding that's associated with this preset. And if I wanted to apply that, I can either hit this icon here or the number 4 on my keyboard, and it'll apply that pattern of coding. The P preset, this one here, is one that's automatically generated by the system. The system will basically remember all of the codes, but not the rating that was applied to the previous document. And if you want to apply those codes to the current document, you can, similarly to the other presets, either click this icon here or the P key on your keyboard to apply this pattern of coding. When you're in edit mode, you can actually edit how the code as previous works. When the panel is collapsed, the presets are accessible via this Coding Presets button here, and you can even see the codes that are associated with each particular preset. So as you saw, besides ratings and codes, you can also apply notes to documents. You can apply notes through the coding panel, but you can also apply notes through the actual note panel itself, which is going to be this icon here. The number in this icon will change to correspond to the total number of notes that are in this document. So if I click on the icon, it'll open up the notes panel. I can read all the existing notes. I can also add a new note. For any note, you can also save that note as a template. And the way to do that is to click on this template icon and choose what slot you want to save the note to. And once you have notes templatized, you can just click them in the Notes Template section. It'll basically pre-fill the content. You can make edits as necessary and click Save. And this can really help speed up your review if you have a standard set of notes that you apply given a document's content, for example. Notes can also be applied to highlights. So highlights is this tool here. Besides yellow, we also have a variety of other colors that you can use. And how highlights work is first you can find a passage you want to highlight, and then you would simply drag and drop over the image view of the document to create a highlight. Once a highlight is created, you can click on it to add a note. And you can also resize the highlight by hovering over any one of the 4 corners and dragging and dropping. The great thing about highlights is It really makes reviewing documents after the fact a lot easier. So if I open up the Notes panel and I scroll down to the Highlight section, you'll see that it'll list the page that the highlight is on, as well as the color of the highlight. And instead of having to flip through the entire document to look for the important passages, I can just click through the highlights, and it'll jump me right to the page, and it'll open up the highlight and any corresponding note. Redactions are applied in a very similar way to highlights. You would just use the black highlighter, which is the redaction highlighter, and drag and drop over the area of the document you want to redact. For redactions, you can also apply a redaction stamp. These are stamps that your admins created that note why an area was redacted. So if this paragraph was redacted because of attorney-client privilege, you can apply the attorney-client stamp to indicate why the content is privileged. If you don't want to use the highlighter tool, you can also use the text selection tool to perform redactions. And how this works is you would just select some text, let's say Enron, and then this panel will open. So the first option lets you redact the current instance that you've highlighted. This next option here lets you redact all instances of the highlighted word or phrase within this document. So what this is saying is that within this document, there are 482 instances of Enron, and if I wanted to, I can redact all of them here with a single click of the mouse. I can also redact and add a stamp at the same time as well. All right, switching over to the right here, this is the hit highlighting panel, and this shows content hits in the document. There are three types of hit highlights. We have search hits that are associated with any content-based search that you might have run to return this document. Next, we have custom hits, which are content hits that reviewers can add at any time. And then after that, we have persistent hits. These are hits that the admin set up, and these hits will appear for all users. And this is distinguished from the custom hits and the search hits in that the custom hits and the search hits will only appear for the user that has these particular hits in the panel. For persistent hits, there are two types of persistent hits. There are uncategorized hits, which are these ones up here. And then there are persistent hits that are categorized. So for example, jargon here, this is sort of an umbrella category. And underneath jargon, there are other hits. If I click on it, I can expand the category to see all the underlying hits that are under jargon. So for these categorized hits, you can either just collapse the category and just navigate through the category, or you can expand it and navigate through the specific hit that you're interested in. People here is another category of hit highlights. Right now, the hit highlighting table is working in the PDF view, and for documents that Everlaw processes, this should always be the case. But for documents that Everlaw did not process that were uploaded into the database, it's possible that the hit highlighting panel will only work in the text view. So if you're looking at the image view of a document and the panel isn't working, or if it's only returning 0 results, it's always good to just flip over really quickly to the text view to make sure that the document actually has no results versus the panel isn't working in the image view. So coming here to the left, this is the context panel. The context panel displays document families. And there are three contexts that you might find useful. The first context here is the duplicates context. So you can see exact and near duplicates down to 95% similarity. And you can click through and look at the content of these documents. After duplicates, we have the attachment family context. So in this case, this email has 2 attachments, and I can click through and look at the attachments here. After the attachment family context, we have the email threading context. The email threading context also includes attachments, so that's one thing to look for as well. For any one of these contexts, you can actually code all the documents the same. And the way to do that is to open up the context and then look all the way down here at the bottom, click on the Update Selected button, and the batch coding panel will appear. So you can tell that this coding panel is different than the individual document coding panel because it has this added section header. If I were to open up the individual document coding panel, you'll notice that there's no section header here. And the reason why there's a section header is because you're affecting multiple documents, and you can not only batch add codes, you can also batch remove codes. So right now, because I'm on a document that's already coded, the system is going to assume that I want to add the coding from this particular document I'm viewing to all the selected documents in the context. That's why these codes are pre-filled. But you can make modifications as necessary. And this works very similar to the preset editing function that you saw earlier. If you click once on a code, it'll add it to this add category, indicating that you want to add this coding. And if you click twice, it'll have this red outline and it'll be added to the remove category, indicating that you want to remove this code if it's applied to any of the documents that you are trying to affect with this batch action. Once you're done making your selections, click Apply. And now these 3 documents that are in the attachment context are coded all the same. All right, let's find some native documents and talk about the native viewer really quickly. So I'm going to jump back to the search page and just pull up some spreadsheets. Everlaw's native viewer can display over 3 dozen different file types right in the browser without the need for plugins. So this is a great option to review native documents, even if you don't have the originating application or if you don't want to download it to open it up on your desktop. In the case of spreadsheets, we have the special spreadsheet viewer, which will render out a static view of the spreadsheet right in your browser window. And that includes all the cell information as well, so you can see if these numbers were generated by formulas. You can also run searches across the sheets. All right, well, that brings us to the end of all the core review features. Again, this was just an overview video, so we weren't able to cover everything. And the things that we did cover, we didn't go into as much depth as we could have. But again, there are a lot of other resources out there, including other videos that will let you do a deeper dive if you're interested.